According to this article that broke today, it appears that Syphon Filter is making a return. As the article states, Syphon Filter 1, 2, Dark Mirror, and Logan's Shadow have been rated for the PS4 and PS5. One would assume that this is probably for the rollout of the PS Plus Premium, releasing this June. Premium is Sony's way to provide classic games through their modern systems. As a big Syphon Filter fan, I'm pretty excited to see something to indicate that it is coming back in some form. This excellent series has largely been ignored by Sony for many years, with its last entry being on the PSP, and honestly this series really doesn't have a bad game in it. In the age of remakes and remasters, I'm kinda surprised Sony hasn't gone back to Syphon and given it a new coat of paint or a remastered collection. While we do not know the quality of Sony's emulation until we get our hands on it in June, the prospect of being able to play older games again is great, and as someone who covers a lot of these classics and hidden gems, many of them hold up pretty well mechanically. They may look dated, but in terms of their gameplay and level design, they are great, and in some cases even offer options that we do not see anymore in the AAA space. The PS1 generation was an interesting time where developers had the creativity and freedom of an indie studio, and as a result we got a lot of interesting ideas, and the Syphon Filter series was one of them. I want to briefly dive into each of the games that seem to be coming in June based on this news. Syphon Filter is the first in the series and easily one of my favorites. It came out at a time where the stealth action genre was growing. On the PlayStation we had the likes of Metal Gear, Tenchu, and Syphon Filter. All three honestly brought something special to the genre. From a behind the scenes perspective, Syphon Filter has an interesting story, because the prior game that Eidetic made was Bubsy 3D. Out of this failure they proved that they could make a game on the PS1, and worked with Sony on a new IP that would be centered around stealth action, and stopping a terrorist threats surrounding Syphon Filter. Gameplay-wise, I still enjoy playing this to this day. As an example, the first level is a great way to suck the player into the game. We get to see a few short cutscenes to set up our heroes and plot, and then we're right into the action. What I love about this first level is that it's largely a non-linear stage, where the player dictates where to go and how it plays out. You need to hit each of the paths to complete the level, but the order the player decides is up to them, and that gives off this great feeling of exploration and discovery. The gameplay is a mix between run and gun shooting and stealth action. You use a lock-on for the more open shooting, and there is a danger meter indicating if an enemy is going to hit you. For the stealthy parts, or just deciding to play conservatively, you can use a first-person aiming system and poke out of cover to get some headshots. One other element that makes Syphon Filter's design special is how there are a good amount of figure-it-out type moments, where the game sets up a situation to make the player feel like an elite operative, and this is incredibly satisfying. For example, you need to get to an upper area in one level, but the elevator is not working. There is a control panel that is above you that appears to be damaged. Now the game doesn't tell you what to do, but I thought, what if I shot the panel? Would that cause the elevator to then go up? And when it worked, you get this wonderful aha moment that makes you feel like a spy. This type of design is not something that you would find in much of modern gaming, and going back to something like this honestly feels like a breath of fresh air. Now before we move on to Syphon Filter 2, I need to give some attention to one of the best weapons to ever be featured in a game, the taser. Syphon Filter 2 is what every sequel wants to be. This game is simply perfect and arguably the best game in the series. It retains much of the same gameplay elements from the first, offers a deeper story with a lot more cutscenes, and has plenty of awesome situations. From a simple action standpoint, there's some impressive set pieces here for the PS1. I always love the train sequence in Uncharted 2, and oddly enough, I think that sequence was inspired by the one in Syphon Filter 2. The action here is great and very forward moving. Where Syphon Filter 2 truly shines is how it presents so many action movie inspired problem solving situations. In Syphon Filter 1 there were instances where the game required you to figure something out based on the clues in the environment, and this is used a lot more in the sequel. For example, there is a situation where you need to rescue some men that are surrounded by two guards. Now you can try killing one, but the other guard will quickly fire on your men, but as you assess the situation you will see that one guard is stationary while the other is patrolling back and forth. So I thought, what if I could try and kill both at the same time, and fire once the patrolling guy is in front of the stationary one? I tried this and it worked, creating a great sense of player satisfaction. The game didn't explicitly say fire when the patrolling guard is in front of the stationary one, handholding you through this sequence. Instead, the game gives the player the room to experiment and discover the solution through clues and quality design, where you need to sneak past a set of guards, but it's down a narrow path. There is a truck that will come through and you need to try running alongside it to use it as cover so no one sees you. Both of these situations are examples of things you have seen in good action films, but now you are playing them, and on top of it, the game is letting the player figure it out. This means that there is some frustration that comes with this, as you try to solve the puzzle of these encounters, but as such they are even more memorable because of how hands-off they are. Syphon Filter 2 is full of really smart design. Now the next two Syphon Filter games are the two PSP games. They are both fun titles, but they are much different than the PS1 and PS2 entries. For one, the gameplay is more of a stop and pop experience, with a more traditional cover system. Much of the figuring it out type of design from the prior titles is now traded for more modern action situations. I do miss the older design when playing the PSP titles, but they are honestly impressive third-person shooters, especially when you factor in the hardware limitations of the PSP, not having a second analog stick. I do think new players will find these two games more accessible as their starting points, as they play like something that could be released today. And while the problem solving is not featured here, the shooting is solid and you get plenty of fun toys to play with. What I do find odd is that Syphon Filter 3 and the Omega Strain are currently not being rated. Syphon Filter 3 is the weakest of the original three games, but it's still really good. The brief history with the title is that Bend Studios was asked to make the game by Sony, as one of the last PlayStation 1 games to cash in on that audience. When playing it, the action is still solid, and it has some good story moments as well, but the biggest piece missing are the problem-solving situations. So in that way, it feels like a downgrade after playing Syphon Filter 2. But Syphon Filter 3 sort of makes up for it with the use of the minigame mode, which offers a lot of replay value. The Omega Strain is honestly a game that should be remastered today. In many ways, it operates like one of the good live service games like The Division. It is more of an online co-op game, with lots of progression and many ways to complete the level with friends. It does have a single player mode, but Sony made Bend Studios add this in very late in development. I do hope down the line that Sony brings back Syphon Filter 3 and the Omega Strain. The one thing I am wondering about with this entire PS Plus premium service are the PS1, PS2, and PSP games going to receive any trophy support. I think this would be an excellent addition, and would push more people to pay for the premium tier. There is a large trophy hunting community, and I think many would love to earn trophies for their old favorites. Now, nothing official has been announced, but with the hints of Syphon Filter coming back in some way, this makes me very happy. This is a series that is not brought up enough, and has continually delivered quality games. I am a bit biased since I'm a huge fan of it, but I think we need more stealth action games out today. And honestly, I think we could use a game like Syphon Filter 2, where it blends impressive action sequences with plenty of situations that allow the player to figure things out for themselves, without being handheld the entire time. What are your thoughts on the potential of Syphon Filter coming back? Have you played any of them, and what are some of your favorites? If you're interested in being notified of new videos, please hit the subscribe button and bell. And if you'd like to support the channel and get early access to content, please check out my Patreon. All of the links will be at the end of this video and within the description. And thank you very much for watching.